Huawei really has outdone themselves with the new Matebook X Pro. This model they have been working hard on, their engineers, their designers, to get the weight down, to improve the screen, improve basically everything about the previous model now has been bettered here with this. So the weight of it, really impressive. It almost makes you want to kind of just throw it around. It's that light. Magnesium alloy build with a soft touch finish to it. It's only 980 grams and it's 13.5 millimeters, the thickness of it. So it's thin, yet it's packing quite a bit of power. It's got 32 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabyte SSD, and the Intel Core Ultra 9185H. That has 16 cores, 22 threads, and turbos at 5.1 gigahertz. And the screen is nothing short of amazing either. This is a flexible OLED screen. They've thinned everything down on this, reducing weight too as well. It has a 3.1K resolution, 120 Hz is the refresh rate, supports 10 touch points. Brightness, their claim is up to 1000 nits, and it's a very accurate screen, great color gamut, as you'll see the coverage of it later in this video. Battery, well, it's 70 watt hours. And it does support their 90-watt supercharging, and I'll be going over it in detail like all of my other videos. It is a long video because I go in depth in this walkthrough, so there are time codes. So what is included with our Matebook X Pro 2024 edition? Well, we have a Type-C to Type-A adapter, and you'll see why in just a few seconds. Type-C headphones, our Type-C to Type-C cable, and then our charger, which is 90 watts. It is their supercharge. So I talked about the weight in the intro, which is really good, 980 grams, but let's have a look at what my scale states. Well, 981, that's close enough, but that isn't our total travel weight. You still want to take the charger and the cable. It brings it up to 1.22 kilos, which is very good, all up travel weight. So I think hands down, this has to be one of the top laptops that I have covered so far in 2024. So they have this really nice metallic body to it with a smooth skin finish to it. And the way to describe it is it's a fingerprint resistant matte coating to it. And it just feels very, very nice. It doesn't give it a cheap feel at all. I like it because it's something different and it doesn't show any fingerprints. So we've got a very thin screen on the top, fully laminated. And when I press down here, there really isn't much flex at all. We have the Huawei logo there, and opening it up, you can do it one-handed. With the Matebook 14, I wasn't able to do that. And then we are presented with a really nice keyboard. Now the touchpad, very nice and wide. It has the haptics again, the haptics engine, and the smooth glass finish to it. It is a really good touchpad, and I have to say it's definitely out there, being in the top 3 for Windows laptops that I've been testing out. We have 6 speakers in total, 4 microphones, Huawei sound, power button here with fingerprint reader, but we also have the infrared camera with face unlocking, and the keyboard, 1.5 millimeters of travel. It is backlit. It feels really nice. Matte covered keys too, and just a really good layout to it. And I think it's excellent. Now, when you use the laptop and you're pushing it really hard, I mean really, really hard for long periods, palm rest always stays cool. We get a little bit of heat here and some heat at the top that does get hot. And I've measured so far 47 degrees Celsius, which is okay, but yes, it is warm. Backlit keyboard currently off at the moment. You can see the tiny little status LEDs, this highlighting there that the microphone is muted and caps lock is on. So that's the first level right now for our backlit keyboard, and then the second. Now it's evenly distributed. It looks really good when you're using it on a table. It's not that bright that underneath the keys is kind of shining up and, well, an annoyance to you. No, not at all. Considering they're working with 4.2 inches, they've done really well with the keyboard, and it's only the compromise they have is the half-size arrow keys up and down, and I don't see that as being too much of a major there. It's a really nice keyboard. I've been using their keyboards for some time now, and I think they make some of the best. It's just a joy to type on. Note that on the underside, it's the same metal with that really nice smooth finish to it, and there's no vents at the bottom here that you're going to block if you do end up using it on your lap. Now, again, if you're going to be pushing it really hard with it plugged in and you're in the performance mode, it does get a little hot around this area. That is all pretty much normal there. So we've got intakes here on the side, and that is for some of the speakers because there are 6 in total with Huawei sound here. The Matebook X Pro does not disappoint either when it comes to the audio. So 6 speakers in total, which is a lot for a small 14-inch laptop like this one that's very light and yet they managed to do this. They managed to give it some impressive sound. So with the Huawei sound, with those 6 speakers, it covers our lows, our mids, and even a little bit of treble. If I was to criticize one thing, it could be a tiny bit louder, but even so, the loudness is excellent, and I'd say it's better than literally all of the other laptops out there in this category. And I'll go as far to say that it probably has the best for a 14-inch laptop speakers that at least I've heard. So here's that sample at 100% volume. The Matebook X Pro, like their other predecessors, is a little sparse on ports. So we have 2 Thunderbolt 4s here, Type-C, that can handle their 90-watt supercharging, status LED. There's no 3.5mm headphone jack, so that's why they include the Type-C headphones. So it's a bit of a disappointment. You have to be using dongles and adapters, and I really feel that they should have put the 3.5mm and a Type-A port would have been really good. So it is very thin. It's 13.5mm. We have this switch here to disable the webcam, and this is a Type-C USB 3.1. Gen 2, I believe it is. So the other side is where you get the high speed and the power delivery and the display out from those 2 ports. But really a Type-A on this and a 3.5mm and maybe even a micro SD card slot would have been perfect for ports. But if you want more ports, then the MacBook 14 has a lot more, including a full-size HDMI 2.1. Nothing at the back, nothing at the front here, but there is this little lip, so that's why it makes it very easy to open it up. And just everything about this laptop just screams quality. So this is a 3:2 aspect ratio screen, 14.2 inches. Resolution is 3.1K, so it is 3120 by 2080, so just shy of 4K, which of course is 16:9. Now notice that the bezel's very slim, and the bottom bezel, a lot of these laptops that have a touch screen, which this does have, would have a bottom bezel that is a lot larger because they put a lot of reinforcing in there. Now the screen, when you do tap on it, it wobbles a tiny little bit, but not bad at all. And this is the furthest it will go back, which is not a lot. It will not lie completely flat. It's not one of those screens, unfortunately. Now, the touch response and the accuracy, very good, no problems, up to 120 Hertz. And it does have 1440 Hertz hybrid dimming. And they've got an anti-reflective film with the screen too as well that cuts down on the reflections by up to 70%. So it's very clear, really good screen. And it definitely is top tier, one of the best I've ever seen in a laptop of these dimensions and this type of laptop, like a Ultrabook here. So the results of Spider X Pro, I've done this and the calibration. So currently calibrated, this is going back to what they have out of the box. Really hardly any difference. I just noticed that the whites are slightly more bluer with how Huawei has. And this is with the Pro Color option set. So let's have a look at the color gamut, the color coverage right here of this flexible OLED. So 100% of sRGB. That's good. NTSC is 87%. And the big one, Adobe RGB. This is 88%. I was thinking that this might be a little bit higher, but still 88% is very good. And then P3, that is 99% all up. It is a really good display. And response time is 1 millisecond. Being OLED, it is excellent. So very good, top tier, top level display they have in this. They just keep getting better, the screens they use. Webcam sample now with the Matebook X Pro. So it's the AI camera that gives us this virtual background. So it's using stitching to cut me out. I'll turn that off now, but you can see that with the virtual background, it sometimes affects the frame rate, and I can tell now at the moment it is a few drop frames. But turning off the virtual background now, my own normal background, you can see that the video is looking a little bit more fluid. Now, the audio you're listening to, my voice is being recorded with the 4 inbuilt microphones, and I'll just quickly show you some of the other backgrounds. There's a few of them. You can even add your own. So that's just like a desktop background. You can make it look a little bit more professional, like I'm in this really flash looking office now working away and just happen to be talking to people. Although, of course, you can tell it is a virtual background, but it's a nice option to have and very practical, especially if you have a lot of these kind of video calls, conference calls or whatnot. Now you can turn on beautifying. I'll just briefly put that on. make me look a little bit slimmer, smoothed out my skin, and you can soften up or brighten your skin tone, whatever, if you like to do that. There's auto centering and there's also eye contact. So if I keep looking down at the keyboard or looking at the screen, which I was doing a few times just then, this will correct that and make sure my eyes are always, using AI, looking at the camera, giving the other person on the other side eye contact. So that's handy if you're looking down at your keyboard all the time or looking at something else on the screen. So that is the webcam, good quality, and especially those microphones. I particularly like the quality we get from those. The MacBook X Pro does come with Windows 11 Home, not Pro. You'd think it would be Pro, maybe being a more expensive model here and designed for professionals. But of course, you can upgrade to that, but you'll have to pay for that. You just need to add the license and it'll do it online update to 11 Pro. So Huawei's still doing this. They're still partitioning the drive a little bit weird, okay? They've got 200 gigabytes for Windows and then 1.64 terabytes for your documents and things. Now, it's easy enough to fix if you use a partition manager. You can set that up and then reboot, and you can have just the whole drive allocated to all the space there. So I don't know why they do it, but their reasoning is probably if people end up factory resetting, they'll still have their documents left if you decide not to format it at least or clear it on the D drive, the other partition. But that drive it's pretty fast, not the fastest for PCIe 4.0 speeds, as you can see here, but adequate enough. Now, I think it's because you've got BitLocker on, it's slowing it down a little bit, and it is normally about the kind of speeds that I do see with other Huawei laptops. The previous MacBook X Pros that I've covered now, many of them normally have these kind of speeds, so not the absolute top that you would get, say, from a Samsung 990 Pro or something like that. So benchmarks, of course, I have run quite a few of these, and I'll just show you if you were going to be connecting up an external GPU to one of the Thunderbolt ports. This is my result here, TimeSpy graphics score there with an RTX 4090. So the absolute, best in terms of GPU to see what it can do. It got a graphics score there of just over 27,000 points. Now the best I've seen, my Thunderbolt external GPU get 28,000. So it's not far off that. It is very good performance. And Geekbench 6, really good, especially that multi-core score. That's an impressive one, very high. And factor in how slim this is, how light it is, you've got some amazing performance. And the whole laptop in general, I'm not going to show you tasks like spreadsheets, all that, because it's very quick. I will get on to some heavier things like video editing, and I'm really impressed with the performance of the MacBook here. So Night Raid, this is for our Arc graphics, internal graphics here now, and you can see that the graphics score, almost 40,000. This is the highest I've ever seen from integrated graphics. So the Intel Arc graphics performs really well with these synthetic benchmarks. It's almost as if they optimized their drivers to just give it a big boost. And again, this is a fantastic score here. So TimeSpy over 4,000 points. Never seen this before with integrated graphics, nor have I seen this, a graphics score getting close to 4,000 points. Now factor in the Radeon 780M, which is in fact better at gaming, probably down to drivers. That will normally get around 2,900, sometimes see it just creeping over 3,000 points for the graphics score. So this is a good additional, maybe 600, 700 points more than performance, but a really good result here. Very impressive, I think, for integrated graphics. But remember, that's just synthetic. Later, I will do some gaming tests. The Arc graphics does handle very demanding decoding of video files well. However, the media player for Windows causes a little bit of stuttering. You can see there are the occasional dropped frames here when using the built-in media player here with this 4K 140 megabit per second file. And when I have the mouse cursor going over, it can sometimes drop frames. Now, a test file here, the Sony Swordsmith one, which is 4K 60, you can see there it is. Again, it's the cursor, the mouse cursor. When I get rid of that, now it's smooth. Now this is 60 frames per second. As for Cinebench R23, let me just pinch to zoom with the touchscreen here so we can see this a little clearer. Multi-core score there of almost 16,000 is excellent, and the single core score there, it seems that with these newer Ultra chips, they're not quite as fast as the 13th gen because they don't turbo quite as high. It's a little bit lower there, but still just fantastic performance in such a slim and light package. Now, with the devices on board, you will see that that chipset is listed there 22 times because it's 16 cores, 22 threads in total, and 5.1 gigahertz maximum turbo. It does have the NPU now. That is their AI boost, and this is the disk drive, which is simply just stating SSD device 2 terabytes. Now, the fingerprint reader and the IR camera, that is listed right here under our biometric devices. So both of those can be used for Windows Hello to log in. And then the wireless, which is another important one, is, you'll see right here, the Wi-Fi 6E. So we don't have Wi-Fi 7. Most people won't have a Wi-Fi 7 router anyway, but that is all of the interesting devices in here. The included software from Huawei is very good, so they don't force upon us and pre-install McAfee or any other bloatware-ish kind of nagging antivirus that wants you to subscribe and end up paying for a subscription to it. No, they don't use that, which is good. So in the PC Manager, you will find here you have your devices. We've got Huawei Share. You can connect up, wirelessly transfer your files. It's very handy and it works really well. I've gone into it in many other videos with all the Matebooks I have reviewed, and you can set this up, the share there right now with your other devices. You can wirelessly have your phone on the screen, and you can have a second screen set up with, say, a tablet as well if you've got one of the MatePads. So under optimization, you will find here drivers. I've had a BIOS update already. It's all in one place, so this is very useful software. And then we have our performance mode. So this is where you can swap over into the balanced or performance, but function P, should I say, you can swap between that anyway. Now, I've been using the performance mode for all the tests I've done. That puts the power limit to 50 watts, which is a lot. Other brands are only 35, 40 watts with this particular chipset, so that really does push the performance. Now, up here as well, you do have Super Hub, so that's great for just sharing files. You can drop them in here. It's temporary storage. And then we have this, which is their control panel. So you can turn on the eye comfort, instant hotspot, Super Hub, their Pro Color mode, and other settings here. So for the touchpad, free hub, the camera settings there, the sound settings, and then Super Device, which you do need to log in. And you can, again, that's where you can control all your other Huawei devices, your phones and your tablets. So it's very useful software, and it's not just added bloat, which often other brands it is, and it's not useful, but this is great. Their software is good. It works. So it's a known fact that the Radeon 780M for gaming is better than the ARC graphics. However, for productivity, editing video, for example, that I'm doing now, the ARC graphics is so much better. The timeline is very smooth. Look as I skip ahead here. This is one of my videos that I'm doing here, just testing out a robot vacuum cleaner, and I've done it all on the Matebook X Pro. I decided to swap over and test it out, and I am really pleasantly surprised about just how well this is working. It is so fluid. And here I'm going to export and encode at the YouTube preset here, 4K that I always test out. 1 minute of footage is all I do with integrated graphics. Now, this should be around about the 31-second mark, okay? It should be very quick, and probably actually a little bit quicker here, considering this is the top end of the Ultra chipsets, being the Ultra 9 185H, and you see that it's steaming ahead and coding really quick, but it's just that editing performance. Now, we are at that level that you can happily edit 4K video in Adobe Premiere Pro, and it feels like dedicated graphics to performance. So I can do this. I can do my work now on a laptop like this without needing a dedicated GPU. Okay, so that was 30 seconds, a fraction faster than what I see with the Ultra 7 155H. Not too much of a difference there, but it's the Intel QuickSync that really does help out that performance. But overall, I'm really impressed with 4K editing with Adobe Premiere Pro now with these new chipsets, and it's the ARC graphics that's really helping out the performance. Looking at our gaming performance now, so it's not a laptop that's designed for gaming, it's for business work use. However, the ARC graphics can do a little bit. 1080p gaming here with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and we're getting around 50 frames per second at 1080p. This is very good. I don't typically see this. Normally, with the ARC graphics, I would be getting around 40 and just below 40 frames per second. So this is great performance here from Huawei. And it is because of that power limit they set of the power limit 1 being 50 watts versus say 35 or 40 with other brands. So that has boosted the performance. But even so, it is not going to be quite as fast as the Radeon 780M. For games, that is still the best when it comes to integrated graphics. It's able to get close to 60 frames per second in the same area of this map right here. Now, I don't know what is going on with that funny flashing bar at the bottom. That's just started to happen. I think it's down to the latest Intel Arc drivers here, just playing up a little bit. Fallout 4, so I'm going to run it at 1080p, and I think that the medium settings should actually run fine with the Arc graphics, especially with the power limit we do have with Huawei. There seems to be no way to turn off VSync. It wants to be on all the time, so I'm locked to 60 frames per second, but it's very smooth, really playable, and with that next-gen upgrade, it's looking good still for an old game. So the older titles will be very playable with the Arc graphics. And still no lag even with the flamethrower right now, and all this action. Solid 60 frames per second.
Long as they pay.
The Witcher 3, now this is a bit of a surprise because it is running better than I expected, and this is the best I've seen it running with Intel Arc graphics at this point. Now, it is the lower setting preset, and depending on where we are, you can see it's around 40 frames per second, so it isn't amazing. Some other areas of the map, like just up ahead, the frame rate will increase to around about 60, looking a lot more playable at least. But it does dip down to 42. So you want to run this game at 720p. And at 720p, I've already tested it out, and it does run well, around 60 frames, or over 60 frames per second. Then the thermals and the wattage. So thermals, you can see we've hit 106 degrees Celsius. That is very hot. And this only happens, like, I've just been gaming. In fact, The Witch is still running in the background just to keep the system loaded up. You can see it settles down around 75, but you can definitely hear that fan. It's going. It's at full load in the performance mode. So when it gets to 106, it just peaks there for a few seconds, then the fans ramp up. So it drops right down, which is good. Now, average temperatures, most of the time this has been performance mode for now 5 hours and 25 minutes. And this is me pushing it very hard, 55 degrees average. Wattage, well, it's peaked at total system power 99 watts there. And you can see our power limit, level 1 there of 50 watts. And the level 2 is at 80. So that's a more of a short-term power usage there. And maximum turbo. This is probably why the performance is so good. It's happy to run at the proper 2350 right up there. And it normally doesn't throttle. You can see it just dropped down a little bit, about 250 megahertz. But it normally holds the Arc graphics here. It's maximum turbo, unlike some of the other Ultrabooks or the Intel Evos laptops that I've been testing out. So the fan, here's a sample. Worst case scenario, under full load, this is as loud as you're going to hear it. Linux, well, all good. This is Manjaro, the latest build with the open source drivers. And as you can see, I do have it running here. And wireless is working. The brightness, that is also working. Sound does seem to be working, touchpad working, and even the touch screen, which I will just use now a little bit. You can see that that too is working. So good. Good for Linux support. And onto the battery life. So the 70 watt hour battery with it set to 60 Hertz and 30% brightness with just spreadsheets, documents, things like that. 6 hours is what I can get out of this, six and a half. So it should be able to make it through just a workday for most people, but then the charger is not really adding that much weight. You bring the charger, the cable, and even the Type-C headphones along, it's about an extra 215 grams or so, bringing it up to about 1.2, 1.25 kilos total travel weight. But don't forget, this is only 980 grams, an exceptionally good weight for a 14-inch laptop with this kind of power. So for me, it checks so many boxes because it's powerful. We get the performance mode, well, they say 40 watts, but from HW Info, I'm seeing 50 watts that this is pulling for the TDP for the power limit level 1. Editing 4K video with the Arc graphics now with Adobe Premiere Pro due to their optimizations, and then the bit integrated graphics means that I don't need or feel like I need dedicated graphics for editing video, which is a first really. That has all changed in 2024. It really is that smooth and good. It has surprised me. The keyboard, great. The free touch, the touchpad there, really good. The haptics feedback, smooth glass surface to it, and everything. The webcam looks good. The microphones are excellent. The sound on this is fantastic. It's all checking out, but there are two areas of criticism from me, and one is the port selection. Okay, I know they're trying to save weight, they're trying to keep it thin, but still, come on, 3.5mm headphone jack. Huawei in the next one, can you please include that? And maybe, if they could, a Type A port. Just one would be great to be able to plug in a flash drive or a mouse or something without having to always use dongles with this. So it's a laptop that you're gonna have to bring a dongle, and they do include it with the laptop, the Type C to Type A, which is good. The other is the price. That was the obvious one. For this level of hardware, top of the line, top edge, the engineering that's gone into this, of course it is expensive. So it's gonna be out on the June the 18th, and the price of it is 1,999 euros in Europe, and in the UK, you are looking at £2,099 for this configuration, the 32 gigabytes of RAM and the 2 terabytes of storage. So there we go, that's the full story. Hopefully I answered all your questions. If you do have any, let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching my in-depth review here and walkthrough of the Huawei Matebook X Pro, the 2024 model.